Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 28th Annual Vanier College Symposium on the Holocaust and Genocide. For those of you who don't know me yet, I am Marlene Grossman. I'm a psychology teacher at the college, and also I coordinate the symposium. So for more than 2 decades, Vanier College, in conjunction with the Holocaust Education and Genocide Prevention Foundation, have been the only college in Quebec to sponsor a week-long event dedicated to educating students about the Holocaust. Each year, we plan a comprehensive calendar of activities involving guest speakers, lectures, films, survivor testimony, and student participation. So today is basically ending our 28th year. This is our second to last talk. So thank you, Heidi, for joining us. Heidi is the founder and president of the Foundation for Genocide Education. She is also an award-winning film producer and professor of communications at Concordia University in Montreal, and the child of Holocaust survivors. She has been interviewed extensively by local and national media for her comments on how education can prevent hate and violence. The mission of her foundation is to ensure that genocide is taught to every high school student in Canada and the United States. The foundation is currently collaborating with the Quebec Ministry of Education, which is producing a universal guide on genocide to be made accessible in every high school in the province in 2021. Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you, Marlene, for inviting me to give my presentation. This presentation, Never Again, Honoring My Mother's Legacy, I feel fits in so well with the theme of Vanier's symposium, which is our collective responsibility to ensure that the memory of Holocaust victims and the stories of their survivors are not forgotten. This duty to memory and witness has become even more urgent because of the dramatic rise in anti-Semitic rhetoric and hate crimes, not just in North America, but across the world. A report by B'nai B'rith shows a rise of 8% in anti-Semitic incidents in Canada in 2020. This marks the 4th consecutive year of record levels of such incidents. Social media legitimizes and magnifies the voices of hate. Just in the past few months, we have witnessed the online circulation of conspiracy theories accusing Jews of creating and spreading COVID-19. Add to this the recent survey, a survey by the Claims Conference that shows that nearly 2/3 of North American ages 18 to 39 are unaware that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. I truly fear that unless the next generation bears witness to the horrors of the past, the Holocaust will inevitably be minimized and forgotten. On a positive note, Facebook has at least taken the first steps towards stopping the ignorance and denial of the Holocaust by announcing a ban on such posts. But we know that much more is needed and soon. I'm a filmmaker and professor at Concordia University in Montreal. I am also the founder and president of the Foundation for Genocide Education, which I began in 2014. People always ask me why I started this foundation. The reason is to honor my mother's legacy as a survivor and an educator. My mother's name was Ann Kazimirski. It's really still hard for me to believe she's gone. She was such a tough, energetic, and vibrant person filled with love and life. I never thought anything could hurt her, especially after all she had been through. When the Nazis invaded my mother's town in Poland, when she was only 17, she witnessed many cruel and violent acts. Her brother and father taken away, never to see them again. She witnessed the rape and murder of her best friend, Sarah. And worst of all, while she was hiding in an attic, she watched the machine gunning of her mother in front of her very own eyes.
Machla, my friend, said to me, "Come to the window." And the way she looked at me, I knew that something terrible is happening. I heard the screaming, and I saw my mother. My mother with a few other people who were being led by soldiers with rifles. They got them out from a hiding. I don't know where she was hiding. And they screamed at her, "Obernutsa, turn! Obernutsa do syny!" I knew they were Ukrainians. Turn to the wall. My mother was begging and screaming, "Don't shoot us, don't shoot us." She didn't have a chance to finish the sentence. They were going ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Blood was gushing all over the place. The white snow was covered with blood. She was dead. Now I knew that she was dead.
My mother and father survived, running and hiding in forests, barns, cellars, and attics. After the war, my parents and two brothers settled in Saint-Agathe-des-Monts. My father worked as a dentist at the Mount Sinai Hospital there. I was born in Saint-Agathe. There was a great deal of anti-Semitism growing up there. Signs had read, "No Jews, no dogs" on the same side. My father's patient and friend was a Catholic priest. My father was so worried that a genocide could happen in Quebec, especially after seeing so much anti-Semitism in Europe, that he asked the local Catholic priests to give me a Catholic birth certificate, which I still have today. When my mother wanted to buy her first house, no English or French person at that time was selling any property to a Jew. So my mother put a cross around her neck, pretended she wasn't Jewish, and that is how she bought her first home. Even today, there's a decades-old clause prohibiting Jewish people from buying or renting property in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. I was interviewed on local media about it and my experience of anti-Semitism in Quebec. When my mom was 54, my father died. She moved to Montreal, where she went to Concordia University and got a degree in education and became a teacher. She spoke 8 languages fluently and taught immigrant children English as a second language, and in particular, helped many Russian children. She wrote a book called Witness to Horror, where she told her story, and then she began the mission of going into schools. She actually came to Vanier several times. She taught not only about the Holocaust, but about genocide in general and preventing it from happening again. Before my mother died in 2006, she begged me to continue her mission. I went to one of her presentations, and after witnessing the reaction of the students who knew nothing about the Holocaust, and seeing the effect of learning about genocide on the students, I decided to continue her mission. I put together an interactive, bilingual 50-minute presentation using her testimonials to the Steven Spielberg Shoah Foundation and the Montreal Holocaust Museum, which I've given to French and English schools throughout Quebec. I noticed one alarming consistency. Students were not learning about genocide. Teachers were telling me that students were graduating from high school, not even knowing what the word genocide means. And worst of all, teachers were telling me that they were afraid to teach this daunting subject, which is very understandable. There are also teachers that weren't interested in teaching it and telling me they just don't have the time. As well, I discovered that even though the students could hear a survivor's testimonial, I realized it wasn't enough. They have to understand genocide. They have to understand the steps leading to genocide so that they could develop critical thinking in this area and can make sense of what's going on in the world today, to learn the roots of hate and intolerance, and also, most important, to develop awareness on online hate on mainstream social media. When a secondary 5 teacher in Chateauguay said to me, "You have to do something about this," that's when I created the Foundation for Genocide Education. Our mission is to collaborate with governments in Canada and the US to effect change in the educational system and to ensure that genocide and the steps leading to genocide are taught to every high school student in the country. Mass shootings at synagogues and mosques by lone gunmen, influenced by online hate sites and dark web chats. Dark web chat rooms have become the norm. Just this past Sukkot, which is a Jewish holiday, a student coming out of a synagogue in Hamburg, Germany, was attacked and badly injured by a man carrying a piece of paper with a swastika in his pocket. Only 15 US states and 8 European countries have mandated the teaching of genocide and 0 provinces in Canada. This is why we must make genocide study compulsory. And now I would like to tell you how we are accomplishing it. After 4 years of persistence, meeting various education ministers and presenting petitions to the National Assembly and Parliament, where we were greeted with standing ovations, we met with Sebastian Prou, the former education minister, 5 years ago with great success. I asked him, "Did you learn about the Holocaust and genocide in high school?" And he said, "Never." He said the first time he learned about genocide was while he watched Schindler's List in university. Can you imagine? We talked to him about teacher training and inserting a guide on genocide in the secondary 5 history course. He offered to work with our foundation on a committee composed of teachers and experts in the field to create a guide. This committee, which has met many times over the past 4 years, is combining the best resources in genocide education to create one universal, comprehensive guide for high school teachers. The CAQ Minister of Education, François Roberge, has enthusiastically supported this initiative. Quebec will be the first province to have a universal guide on genocide in every single high school. This approach makes us unique amongst genocide education organizations. There will be instructional videos produced by our foundation that accompany the guide. And the government has agreed to organize teacher training workshops for all educators to learn how to teach this sensitive subject. This is a key component to the success of the guide. Curriculum and resources alone will not make a difference without proper professional training. This guide is being validated by teachers as we speak this fall and completed and introduced to all high school students in the province by 2021. Our foundation is responsible for all educational and promotional videos supporting the guide. I am proud to say that this guide will reach over 300,000 students in 600 Quebec public and private high schools. This initiative is a first of its kind in Canada. Once it is introduced in schools here, we plan to meet with all the other provincial ministries to have the guide approved of and used in schools across the country with their own revisions. Then we'd like to share this guide with education departments in the US. I have continued to visit high schools with my presentation. I even gave my presentation to the Muslim community in June 2017 to educate them on the Holocaust. It is important for us to keep delivering the messages to students of genocide of all cultures. Now, other members of our foundation have developed their own presentations with their parents or grandparents' testimonial videos and are going to high schools to speak to students, including children and grandchildren of the Holocaust, Armenia, Rwanda, and the First Nations cultural genocide. Earlier this week, Bavon Kurenga, a young survivor of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, told his incredible story to secondary 4 students in a high school in Terrebonne, Quebec. We were extremely proud. Our ultimate goal is to be the driving force to promote genocide education in Canada and throughout North America. I truly feel if we care about the sanctity of human life and the dignity of mankind, it is our responsibility to stand up to oppression, to educate against it, and to even bring perpetrators to justice. If we do not, then we do not care, and we are bound to repeat the mistakes of the past. We must remember, reflect, and respond. And we must above all make sure that the future leaders of our world, today's students graduating from high school, are given the knowledge and the tools to recognize the violations of rights and to fight for human dignity and survival. As we know, genocide has happened and it continues today in Iraq, Syria, Myanmar, and the Uyghurs in China. There are warning signs now of a second genocide perpetrated against the Armenian community in Artsakh. It even happened in our own country with the cultural genocide of our First Nations. The narrative of hatred is always the same, beginning with dehumanizing a very convenient scapegoat. The Holocaust, it has been said, did not begin in the gas chambers. It began with words.
Es lebe die nationalsozialistische Bewegung! Es lebe Deutschland!
We have the opportunity now to prevent hate and intolerance by educating the next generation. Throughout her life, my mother never stopped honoring the memory of those who were murdered in the Holocaust. She did this by educating others about the need to take action, to stand up to bullying, racism, and discrimination, and to make sure that genocide and other crimes against humanity are stopped. For the last 20 years of her life, she went to schools and universities to speak to students, adults, and even 1,500 American soldiers in Hawaii. Up until her last breath, she told her story so that we would never forget, so that we would fight to stop it from happening to anyone.
My experiences during the war taught me that freedom must never be taken for granted. The freedom to breathe fresh air, to have enough food to eat, to sleep in your own bed. I believe that now, more than ever, we need to keep the memory of the Holocaust alive, to make sure that it is not forgotten. No amount of sympathy or understanding will ever make up for the indignity and suffering that I and thousands of people have been through and will never be able to forget. Some of us, by miracle, were lucky to survive, but all of us are left with pain, tears, nightmares, and broken hearts. The damage is beyond repair. The past history of the Jewish people must never be forgotten. It's history that hurts. The outside world watched, listened, and chose to remain silent. Remember that you, the next generation, must never let it happen again. Thank you.
She told students that the Holocaust must never be forgotten. That is my inspiration, what drives me each day, and why I will continue to fight for the mandatory study of the Holocaust and other genocides in our schools. I have made a promise to all surviving Holocaust survivors that their stories will not be forgotten. My mother's life, her mission, and her spirit will be carried on through my work and the Foundation's work. This is how I continue to honor my mother's legacy so that never again becomes a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heidi, for that powerful presentation. I'm going to open up the question period. And if it's okay with you, I will start with the first question that I have. So it's great that the ministry, you've been working with the ministry on curriculum. Have you gotten a promise from the ministry to actually embed genocide studies into curriculum? So it's great that they're approving the guidebook, but have you gotten the promise that they will actually put it into the curriculum?
It is. We did. We did. It's supposed to be for September 2021. So what it is, it's part of a compulsory course called Contemporary World in grade 11. So it's a module and within that course. And basically, before it used to be one paragraph. Genocide used to be actually just one paragraph, and now they will have this guide. So, you know, at this point, we want teachers to embrace teaching it, the ones that aren't teaching it. I mean, I've met a lot of teachers that are doing a great job teaching it, by the way, but for the most part, most of the teachers don't teach it. And before we can make it compulsory or mandatory, we want teachers to embrace it, to get familiar with teaching it, and then the next step will be to hopefully make it mandatory. But yes, the minister has agreed that in September 2021, this guide is going to be given to every single history teacher, contemporary world teacher, and it could actually be used in English as a second language.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to get involved in your organization, how could they go about doing that?
By reaching us on our website, for the Foundation for Genocide Education, if they'd like to be involved. We actually have now interns from universities that are helping us out starting in January, that are getting a credit, and they're going to be doing work for us, but we welcome all volunteers.
Great. So somebody would like to know what it was like growing up in St. Agathe.
Well, as I mentioned in my presentation, there was a lot of anti-Semitism, and my brothers used to be called dirty Jews, and it was quite tough in that era. But I was very fortunate in that my mother and father, they were very strong and very tough, and we basically knew how to deal with it. And it wasn't easy, but well, we dealt with it, and gradually it got better. Gradually, it definitely got better.
Okay, another question. Would you be able to describe what it was like growing up with Holocaust survivors? Did you and your family live in constant fear, or was there hope and or relief that you were safe from such a traumatic experience?
My mother was a very positive person, and there was always hope. And she taught us that every morning when you wake up, you have to be grateful and embrace your day, embrace the good fortune that they had with surviving, and always, always hope, and always, always strength.
Okay. Another question. Will you get ongoing feedback from those teachers that will be incorporating your guide?
Yes, actually, we're planning to have a survey once they start incorporating the guide to get their comments, which is very, very important. I'm pretty sure there's going to be revisions. You know, as we go along, I'm sure there's going to be necessary revisions, and we will look forward to surveys that will be taken with the high school teachers to get their feedback. It's going to be very important.
And last question, how do students react to your presentation?
Well, you know, history is best passed on by storytelling. And they are very, very moved by listening to the testimonials of my mom and the presentations that we do. And it hits home. They carry it home with them, and we hear from them afterwards. And you see, once, you know, when they do hear a testimonial or they do hear one of our presentations, they want to learn more about genocide. It's an automatic reaction that they become very curious. And this is what we noticed when we started going into high schools, is they have a desire to learn about the subject.
Sorry, one last question came up. Where could they find your mom's book?
It's on our website, and there's a link to the book on our website.
Okay, and a comment. Thank you, Heidi, for your continuing your mother's important mission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your powerful presentation.